All right, today we're jumping right into a mystery. It's the case of Meghalaya's missing forests. And the question isn't if they're disappearing. We know they are. The real mystery is why. So let's follow the evidence together.
So let's start with a number, 84.07 square kilometers. Right now, that probably doesn't mean a whole lot. But trust me, this number, it's the central clue in this whole investigation.
So what does that number actually mean? Well, get this. Between 2021 and 2023, an area of forest bigger than the entire capital city of Shillong just disappeared. We're not talking about a small patch of trees here. This is a massive, landscape-changing event. And that really forces us to ask the one question that cuts right to the heart of this entire story. Are we developing a state, or are we actually destroying it? To even begin to answer that, we've got to understand what's really on the line here. So, let's start with Section 1, A Paradise Lost.
You've probably seen the marketing, right? Meghalaya is sold to the world as this pristine green haven, a nature's paradise. But the evidence we just looked at, it suggests a completely different and much darker reality. Look, this is so much more than just losing some pretty scenery. These forests are the absolute lifeblood of the state. They ensure there's water in the taps. They're the entire foundation of the tourism industry. They protect endangered species, and they're a critical defense against climate change. Losing them puts the state's entire future at risk.
Okay, so if the stakes are that high, what's the official story? What's the reason we're being given for this huge loss? Let's dig into that in Section 2, where we look at the official causes.
Our main piece of evidence comes from this document, the India State of Forest Report. This is the official government publication that first sounded the alarm on that 84 square kilometer number, so its findings are our starting point.
And you know, the report also shows something really important. Meghalaya isn't alone in this. It's actually part of a much bigger, much more worrying trend across northeast India, ranking third highest in the region. This is a regional crisis, not just an isolated incident.
Now, according to the report, there are four main culprits: farms getting bigger, new infrastructure projects, growing towns, and a traditional farming practice called jhum cultivation. And it's that last one that gets a whole lot of the attention. So let's put that main suspect under the microscope. In Section 3, we're asking, is jhum cultivation a cultural tradition, or is it the main culprit here? And this is where things get really complicated, right? Because on one hand, jhum is a cultural and economic lifeline for tribal communities. It's how they've fed their families for generations. But on the other hand, this slash-and-burn method has what the official report calls immense ecological costs, especially now that land is getting harder to find. Which naturally leads you to wonder, okay, if it's so destructive, why are farmers still doing it? Is there something bigger going on here? And it turns out, the answer isn't about what farmers are doing, it's about what they don't have. They lack irrigated land for different kinds of farming. They can't get their other crops to market. They can't get credit to start new businesses. And they don't even have secure ownership of their land, so there's no real incentive to conserve it. They are, for all practical purposes, trapped. In that realization, that's where this whole investigation just flips on its head. So let's get into Section 4, the policy plot twist. Just let this statement sink in for a second. The loss of all these forests isn't some random accident or just an unavoidable part of tradition. The argument here is that it's the direct result of deliberate policy choices. This reframes the entire problem. The forest loss is supposedly a byproduct of development. But what if the so-called development, the new roads, the new townships, is the destruction? And what if blaming the farmers is just a very convenient distraction? This reveals what's been called a cycle of hypocrisy. Step 1, you market the state as a green paradise. Step 2, you approve the very projects that clear its forests. Step 3, you publicly blame traditional farming for all the damage. And the final, crucial step, you fail to provide any support or alternatives to help those farmers change. It's a perfect, destructive loop. So where does this cycle lead? Well, that brings us to our final section, where the consequences of these choices become crystal clear. Section 5, the true cost. Let's just trace this path. In the recent past, the state lost a huge area of mature, ancient forest while celebrating small-scale tree planting events. In the present, that nature paradise slogan rings more and more hollow. In the future, if this keeps up, it's an almost inevitable story of water shortages and climate disasters. Ultimately, what's happening is this. The state is cashing in its most valuable long-term asset, its natural capital, its forests, its water,
for fleeting short-term profits. It's like selling the family home just to pay for a vacation.
Which leaves us with one final urgent question. Has anyone in a position of power actually sat down and done the math? Have they weighed the long-term, permanent loss of these vital forests against the short-term gains of a new road or a new township? The answer to that question might just determine Meghalaya's entire future.